Hi, this is Annie Fox for Family Confidential, Secrets of Successful Parenting. My guest today is Kevin Kuczynski. Kevin is a high school counselor and the author of the new book, Behind the Counselor's Door, Teenagers' True Confessions, Trials, and Triumphs. Hi, Kevin. Welcome to Family Confidential.
Hi, Annie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm always delighted to talk to anybody who helps kids be better at being themselves. I loved your book, and I want you to kind of give me a good case for the statement you make in your preface that says that school counselors are essential to the success of schools. Why?
Thanks for asking, Annie. School counselors are vital. So many times it seems that parents and just people in general look at school counselors as a means to assist with testing and scheduling and that sort. But as society has moved on over the years, teenagers have had increased social and emotional needs, which has caused them to need support in navigating life. So as much as school counselors have played a role in education and academics and planning for college, there's really been a need for kids to see a counselor to gain that social emotional support, especially with parents having a decrease in their insurance, to give them that support. So they really serve a two-pronged purpose.
Well, I'm so glad that you're doing it. And I know that in recent years, with budget cuts on the school district level and on the state level, there have been a cutback in the presence of school counselors. And I find that pretty appalling because, as you know, I receive emails from kids who I often say, can you talk to a school counselor about this? So because most of our listeners and viewers are parents, I'm wondering in their mind, if there might be some red flags. And my kid goes to see a counselor, is this the same as therapy? What's going on behind that closed door in Mr. K's office? Because is there a confidentiality thing? And I, as the parent, ought to know what my kid is talking to the counselor about. So how do you address those concerns?
Confidentiality is something that is very important with me. But however, as a counselor, I try really, really hard to keep the lines of communication open with parents. So anything that is even a remote concern that I see, that I hear from kids, I will encourage them to talk to their parents about it. And it ranges all different circumstances. Sometimes the parent will come in and we'll meet together. Sometimes the teenager will go home and talk with their parents about the circumstance. But really, I encourage teenagers to understand that their parent is their lifeline when I'm not accessible. And they need to work together to live life. And we all know life is not easy, whether we're teenagers or adults. So the more that we can collaborate and communicate and work together, the more effective we can be at living life successfully.
Well, that's ideal, obviously, to have a parent come in and speak with you, with their student, and also the other scenario of encouraging the student to go home and talk about these issues with parents. But I know that many kids will say, no way am I going to talk to my mom or dad about this. And then what happens? Are you sometimes in a position where you're privy to information that the parent really ought to know? Do you need the student's permission?
Do I need the student's permission? For certain things, yes. But what I will do is, if it's a nature that is quite serious, and
can you define serious?
Serious, it might be anything from a pregnancy to something that might not seem as big of a deal just because I don't talk much to my parents. So, if it continues to get worse or it seems to impact their academic success more, it's impacting them not just at home but also in the classroom, I will I will contact the parent as well as teenager in an effort to refer them out to get some outside counseling. Once again, all done in the hopes that professional therapist outside of the school setting can bring the parent and the teenager together in the hopes that they can work through those struggles or issues in that manner.
I can think of a zillion things where a parent and a teen might not see eye to eye. Wow. Coming out as a gay, bisexual, or lesbian or transgender student, you are privy to this information, and the student, for whatever reason, does not feel safe talking to their parent about that. I could imagine the idea of sexual activity amongst teens, where you know that something's going on in a relationship between two students of yours, and no way would I talk to my parents. So, gosh, I'm imagining it's kind of tricky for you, or maybe not so much. In reading your book, I get a very strong, calm, and mentoring tone, which I love, because that's kind of the way I talk to the kids that I interact with. But I'm wondering if you ever get flack from parents about either, I want to say, withholding information, or just respecting the student's confidentiality, say about sexual orientation, for example, and the parent finds out about it and they're like, you knew this and I didn't know this.
Annie, it's funny you bring that up, because I've gotten flack both ways. I've gotten flack for telling them, and I've gotten flack for not telling them. Some parents, you tell them and you let them know what's really going on. And certain parents want to believe this perfect image that they have of their child. So to think that, oh, my child has dabbled in drug use, or has experimented sexually, that sort of thing, that they don't want to know that. So they tend to be frustrated because they have this image of who their child is, and they don't want myself as a school counselor to tarnish that. Right. On the flip side of it, obviously, I've had conversations with parents where they are appreciative that they do know, and they are supportive and understanding in that regard. I think what makes it difficult is, just as every teenager is different, every parent in their response to a situation is very different. So you're kind of, the expression of flying by the seat of your pants, you're kind of taking each circumstance on its own and kind of going along as circumstances warrant, and then making a decision accordingly there. And that's why, for me, with the book, it really gives parents an opportunity to glean in the experiences of other kids and have conversations with their own child that, in turn, they might be able to relate to what their teenager is doing now.
Yeah,
just haven't shared with them.
I love the dialogue within each of the sessions that you document in the book, and for our listeners and viewers, these are obviously fictitious names, and yet the way that you talk to the students and listen to them is such great modeling for parents. And I'm sure that didn't escape your thought. I know this book was written for teens, but I think that parents of teenagers would do very well to read it.
I think, one of the things I will often tell teenagers, and it's in the book as well, and I think it's a great tip for parents, is, as a school counselor, I don't look at my role is to solve their problems. I'm there to help kids solve their own problems. Because if I do that, then they're more apt to adapt to the challenges of life as they grow older. And I think, as parents, if parents looked at their role as a means to collaborate with their child, not to solve their problems, but to communicate with their child so they can come to their own conclusion as to what's best, maybe it minimizes the judgmental pieces that we feel as parents, in the hopes that we can, guide our kids in the right direction.
Yeah. The truth is, you are a mentor, and you're on the kid's side, giving him or her the tools that they need to move forward beyond graduation. And that's exactly what a parent is as well.
Yep.
So being the idea of kind of we're on the same team here, supporting this young person, I think that's really beautiful. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of being a school counselor versus, say, a counselor in private practice?
I think the biggest difference between private practice, and I dabbled in that a little bit before I went into the school counseling role, the school counseling piece, there's no need for insurance or things of that sort. It's just me with the student. And so there's no time restrictions on that. If a student needs 25 minutes, that's fine, depending on their concern or question. But at the same time, there's been times where I've been with students for hours, almost the whole day, which resulted in them being evaluated for concerns related to suicide and things of that sort. So I love that I can kind of deal with them, their friends, in the trenches as it's happening, and there's no time constraints on that. In private practice, you've got, let's say, a 6 o'clock session with your therapist, and then you've got to wait till the following week. Well, for me, I can see them, today, tomorrow, and the next day, and at least touch base with them, once again, depending on what the circumstances.
I'm so glad you're doing this work because I know how important it is to have an on-site counselor because, stuff comes up all the time in the trenches, but also stuff kind of festers, and it's sometimes re-stimulated by what's going on in the trenches. We only have a couple of minutes, and I have one more question before we close, and that is, what's the biggest takeaway you would like to give to parents about the role of the school counselor in a high school?
The role of a school counselor is a means to help students navigate life. For some kids, that's academic. For some kids, it's concerned social, emotional. However, for others, it's both. And your school counselor ought to be an avenue for you as a parent to help them navigate the challenges of life, whether it's for your teenager or for you as a parent working with your child. So we're a resource for you as a parent to collaborate together to make your role of parenting easier for you, as well as growing older for your teenager a little bit more manageable as well. And certainly behind the counselor's doors, a means to assist in that and to help kind of navigate the process to hopefully open that line of communication open between you and your child.
So parents listening, there is a fabulous free resource in your child's school, hopefully, that you can come to and collaborate with for the benefit of your son or daughter. That's great. Now we literally only have a minute left, Kevin. And before we go, could you please give our viewers and listeners an opportunity to find out where they can learn more about your book and your work?
Okay. The book is Behind the Counselor's Door. You can certainly Google it. It's available at Amazon, Target.com, Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and many others. Certainly, I encourage you to seek it out. It has really become a great source of conversation and communication between kids and parents. And if you got questions, feel free to email me, AchieveGreatness2014@gmail.com.
And your website is?
AchieveGreatness.KevinKuczynski.wix.com.
Wow, okay. We're going to have that on the screen, and so people won't have to be scribbling for notes or replaying this again and again. That's great. Thank you again, Kevin. I truly mean it. I know that kids often flounder and don't know who they can turn to, especially when they're in the trenches and things come up for them. And I'm sure it's very reassuring for the kids that call you Mr. K to know that behind that counselor's door, there's help.
Great, Annie. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome. Thanks. This is Annie Fox for Family Confidential. To learn more about my work with parents, tweens, and teens, visit anniefox.com. And check out my parenting book, Teaching Kids to Be Good People, Progressive Parenting for the 21st Century, and my latest book for tween girls, the Girls' Q&A book on friendship, 50 Ways to Fix a Friendship Without the Drama. And if you like this podcast, we ask that you review it on iTunes. It may be a little thing to you, but it means an awful lot to us. Family Confidential podcast is produced by Electric Eggplant, creators of books and apps for parents, kids, tweens, and teens. And tune in next time when my guest will be Irene Salcer. Irene is a mental health professional and a parenting expert, plus the author of the new book, 99 Tips to Reset the Table. Parenting in a Society Obsessed with Food, Weight, Obesity, and Body Image. Until next time, happy parenting.